All right, here we are, Sharpen the Spear podcast. Great to be back. I have got a spectacular guest. Pete Mohr is with us today. And as I always do, no one knows Pete better than Pete. So Pete is going to introduce himself, give us a little backstory, bring us up to speed, and we're going to get into the full interview. So Pete, welcome to STS. Let's hear.
Thanks so much for having me, Richard. I'm excited to be here with you and your audience today, for sure.
Awesome.
Do you want me to dig into the background right now?
Yeah, let's do it, man. Let them know who they're talking to. Let them know who I was able to get here on the Sharpen the Spear podcast. This is amazing.
How do you take 30 years down to 2 minutes, right? And I think,
easy.
It is interesting. As we're recording here in 2024 in the fall, I started my first, I'll call it real business, because I had part-time businesses before that, going through school and university and stuff like that. But my first real business in September 1st, 1994, and it's been 30 years. It's been a ride, I really only ever had a job working for somebody else for about 6 months on a full-time basis after university. And he was my namesake, actually, my dad's best friend. His name was Peter, too. And, he said to me, he goes, Pete, I think you're meant to be your own boss. And I said, I think I am too. So, that's where it all began. Back in 1994, I bought a franchise. It was a bathroom renovation company, and we owned that from 94 to 2009. And I'm proud to say that 30 years later, it's still going. The current owner called me and said, Pete, you had it 15 years. I had it 15 years. It's doing well, and I'm really proud of that. I also had another franchise at the same time, and it was a cleaning company that we had bought. It was underperforming. It had 30 clients, and we built it up to 300 clients and then sold it. I was a business broker for a while, helping people buy and sell businesses, which is how I found the shoe store that I currently own. We built the shoe store, and that was in 2010, so we still own that one. We bought another one, we moved it, we closed it, we opened a different one, and that one's been going for about 10 years too. So we currently own 2 shoe stores in Ontario and own and operate those. But I spend my days these days mostly working with other business owners. I work about a day a week in my shoe stores, and the rest of the time I'm helping other business owners, as I say, kind of go through their frustrations and turn them into the freedoms, which is really what we want to do as a business owner. It's like we didn't get into business owner to have a more frustrating life, to have less time, less money, all this other stuff. We got into business for ourselves because we wanted to have a better life. And, that's more what I'm doing these days, is helping other people through the experiences that I've had over the last 30 years, talking to all sorts of other people and working through some of those things that they're dealing with right now in order to change the life that they have, so that I like to say their business is propping up the life that they want to live instead of them always propping up their business.
Yeah, that's awesome. That is, we're so aligned that way. I've been in business myself 35 years now, and there's no substitute for time in the game, right? I mean, that's just, and when it's entrepreneurship, we've got the scars. If we could, we could do that the whole show, just compare all the crazy that we've been through. But I think what I love is you're doing what I'm doing, is when we can show. I love the compressed time by showing other owners who are either in the very beginning of their journey or first 2 to 5 years, just show them a little different way, just enough to a little pivot, a little change the trajectory, and also, like you're saying, the freedom we got in the business for, they start getting. They start making the profit they always knew they could, but didn't really figure out how. And then my third thing is always the impact too. So once you're successful, I'm air quoting, but successful in business, you've got the time, you've got the money. That's when you can make impact. That's when you can help others. That's what you're doing. That's what I do. We make impact. We help these other businesses. Okay, that's an impact. So I love that. What are you finding? Let's just start right there. When you get in, if you know this, like I kind of know it, it's hard to say a number one, but what's the number one challenge you hear from a business you're going to work with? Like when someone contacts you, you bump into someone. Let's compare what people usually say. What's the number one thing in your book? What are you saying?
I don't do a ton of startup work anymore, Richard.
Me either.
I do a little bit, but not a ton. Most of the clients that I'm working with that sort of resonate with the stuff that I'm coaching to they've been at it for a while now, and they're looking for something different. They're looking for a change, and the change usually revolves around time. It revolves around, I'm tired of making every decision in my business. I'm tired of opening the door, closing the door at night. I'm tired of not having a vacation. Maybe I'm making more money now, but is that truly the only thing that I need? And, it's an interesting thing because most of my clients aren't suffering in business. Their businesses are actually doing fairly well, but they just need to make some changes so that they can enjoy their life and they can sort of take some other things out of their business other than just putting in, like I said, where they're always there propping up, helping make every decision, helping do every little thing, and being in charge still. So part of the idea there is to the point, well, I'm a certified exit planner and I help people get their business ready for sale is one of the things that I do. But a lot of times people say they want to sell their business, but they don't actually mean it. What they really mean is, I don't want to make all the decisions anymore, and the only way I see out of that is to sell my business, and that's not necessarily true.
Yeah, that's a great point. We're aligned there too. I'll back it up for a second. The startup, people always ask, well, why don't you help startups? I said, well, there's numerous reasons. Okay, one of them I tell them is, well, first of all, like we mentioned earlier, they don't have the scars yet. It's hard for them to value someone of our caliber, a coach even, at almost any level, if they haven't suffered. You got to suffer, you got to go through it, you got to know where you're at. So they are difficult. They got a lot of things to learn. They got to lose a little money, right? They got to have a little hardship. You got to go, that's part of it. But I love what you're saying because it's the same thing. People have been in business 5 years to 15 years. Like you said, I love the part about they want to exit, but they don't really. They just don't know an alternative. I think that's an awesome point. So because I love exit strategy, right? This thing I talk about a lot. For one thing, I think a lot of business owners don't start that soon enough. And I mean, I help when I do a little bit of online stuff with startups. I try to have them begin with their exit strategy. Start with that and work your way backwards, right?
I think, exit strategy is just good business strategy. And you don't need to start exit planning when you're 3 months away from trying to sell your business. That's the wrong time. It should be ongoing. It's just good business strategy to be thinking about the exit, how you're going to exit, what does it entail, what's involved, what's your timeline, what's the valuation that you'll require upon exit. All these different things fall into exit planning. And a lot of people just are buried so much in the weeds of making the next decision for the next day that they're not really thinking and taking part in sort of this long-term strategy. Because here's the thing. For a lot of small business owners, medium-sized business owners in, our markets in the Canada and the US, and their business is often the biggest thing in their portfolio, bigger than their house. For most people that aren't business owners, their house is usually the biggest thing. But, for business owners, a lot of times the biggest thing in their portfolio is their business, yet they don't even know the true value of it. It's an interesting thing that, you can do your comparables out of the houses that have sold around your neighborhood, and you can go into your stock list and look at your stocks and all that sort of stuff, and you know exactly what things are worth and what they've sold for and traded for in the last day. But a lot of business owners, as up to 70% of their entire portfolio often is in their business, they don't even know what the value is. And the problem is, as they go and play around a golf with their buddies, or they talk to some other business owners, or they talk to whoever they talk to, those people are generally saying, well, I sold my business for $1 million or $10 million or whatever it may be. You should be able to do that too. And then we get these sort of ideas that, he sold his whatever, ice cream shop or mechanical company or whatever it was for this, and I should be able to get that too. And that's just so far from the truth in a lot of cases. And people are using those as benchmarks as to when they can exit their business, whether they're exiting for retirement, whether they're exiting for another opportunity, or for whatever reason they're exiting, that they have this idea of what their business is worth, and often it isn't worth that. And that changes a lot of decisions in life if you don't actually have a clear, range of value of what your business actually is worth, so that you can make the decisions you need to make for your family and for your legacy.
Yeah, I think it's a hard slap in the face when all of a sudden they want to exit in a year and they haven't built a business, and we all have this number in our head.
Sure.
It's like our own children, right? My children are way more valuable than your children. Okay. So to me, right?
Yeah.
Like you wouldn't give me $5 for my kid, but you know what I mean? So it's exactly like that. And it's hard. That's why when we talk about exit strategy, the earlier you think about it, the more you can use it. I call it a business filter. It can help you make decisions every day. Like, what's getting me to that exit strategy? How quick can I get there? Does this add or detract from that? And they can make really good decisions. I think it really comes down to kind of what you do, Pete, is that you can plan better. If you want to accumulate assets for more income generation, right? You can start doing that with active business income. That's aiding you towards your exit strategy, because you want to exit because you're making active business income. But then you sell whatever the number is, you no longer have active business income. You're out. So now you got to replace that, right? But if you know that you're going to get out in 10 years and for this money, and you're going to build a business for that, and at the same time you're accumulating these income generating assets, you can replace that active business income, get your number at the end, and voila, you've still got that money coming. So I think there's so many levels of importance to an exit strategy that I think a lot of business owners don't understand, because, again, you said they're in the weeds. They're doing it. They're doing their business. And that's what I run into, too, is I like to get them on their 5%, the 5% of only what they can do in the business, right? They're the visionaries. They're the grabbing the big client. They're looking at new market share. That's what they should be doing, not the day-to-days. And that day-to-day, even though they do well at it, like you said, they're successful, but at the same time, they're not able to focus on the correct things to really give them that great exit. I think that's what it might come down to, right?
Yeah. It's a lot of, I'm also a Colby coach. And when we start overlaying Colby, which is an assessment on how you make decisions and how you take action and a lot of this sort of stuff, there's a certain profile for a lot of entrepreneurs out there, for sure. Not every entrepreneur by any means, but a lot of entrepreneurs fit into a given profile. And typically that profile is not the best manager. It's the best leader. And there is a difference. But as the business owner, mainly because we've started off, we've gone through those first, like you said, 1 to 5 years. And it's like, hey, maybe I didn't have the capital. Maybe, you do what you have to do to manage that business and manage that growth. And I get that. That's what most startups need to do. But once you get to that point, and I think this is why a lot of the business owners seek guys like you and I to help them through that next stage, is because they really aren't managers. They've had to be a manager, and they could be a manager, and they were probably decent at it because, they're in the business and they know the value of getting this stuff done. But it's really not what I call it their love it zone. And from that perspective, how do we move into our love it zone? Like you said, that top 5%, which I call the love it zone in my sort of framework. And, when we get them there, and this is that same sort of idea. It's like, oh, maybe I want to sell my business because I'm just tired of making all the managerial decisions. Once we get them there, then they kind of look back and it's like, all right, well, let's look at the value of this thing. And we'll use some easy numbers. Let's say the business is worth $1 million. If I took a business that's worth $1 million, or if I had $1 million in my back pocket, what would I do with it? Would I buy a rental property? Would I put it in the stock market? What am I going to do in order to get the return for the amount of time that I put into this investment, just like any other investment in your portfolio? And is it worth the investment that you have placed in that business for the amount of time? And that's when you start looking at it sort of on as a whole, not just as your business, but as a whole as to what you have in your business and your life and your legacy and all those kind of things. And it's all part and parcel, because the business at this stage, if you're the sole owner of the business, it is you and you are the business. And so you need to look at it. What do I want out of my whole thing, my house, my life, my other investments, all these other things combined as a total? And that's when you can make the decision, Am I ready to exit my business, or am I going to keep this? And in my case, like, I'll use my shoe stores. I put in about a day a week with my shoe stores, and for what I make from those shoe stores, and for the investment that I have, and for the time that I put in that business, why would I sell them? It's a good investment. And so, but it's nice that I can have that choice at this stage, because it is ready to sell. It is set up. I have everything aligned. I have my people in place, my product in place, my process in place. Everything's aligned so that I can easily present it to a given potential buyer down the road if I choose to do that. But if I don't have all that stuff in place, it's really hard to pull that stuff together in a month or two. Because here's the other thing, Richard. About 50% of businesses in North America exit because they have to, not because they want to. What I've just been talking about is when I'm ready, I will, and I'm prepared. But the other side of the coin, why you want to start your exit planning now, is what happens if you have to exit? What happens if you die? What happens if you get divorced? What happens if you have a partnership disagreement with your partner and it causes an exit of the business? What happens if you become disabled and can't do the work that everybody's depending and making the decisions for you? You know, all of these different things cause people to exit their business prematurely. And when they do and it's not ready, you're leaving money on the table, value on the table, and legacy to your family is not as good.
Yeah, those are, man, that's just a ton of takeaways right there. But it really is, really, you hit it perfect, Pete, as I expected you to. All right. So, I mean, it's so good that I had to leave prematurely, 08, 09. Okay. A lot of people who were around then, that was you're getting nothing for your business, because you weren't ready. It wasn't in place. I just thought it's always going to be good. I'll just make more money, and then that hard reality comes, and it was rough, really, really rough. And you're right. All of the things you nailed is, I think people really should itemize that. Like, look at that and go, well, it's like when you're talking to someone about life insurance. Okay, well, I'm not worried about that. I'm 35. Well, how many 35-year-olds I got to show you that died? I mean, that kind of thing, right? But it is so important from a business standpoint. And I think that's where not just having the exit strategy, but having the foresight to know the need for it and what its real purpose is. Like you just described, like 10 things, 10 different things that you need it for. It's not just so that, one thing, and like what I've learned and what I help clients with too is the same thing. Like, it gives them peace. It gives them some peace because they really, and it gives them direction on how to run the business. Because when they reverse engineer that, they know when and who they need, when to put on the next person, where they're going to go, when they got to increase, when they got to pull back, right? They get to see all this stuff, and it really helps them manage that business wisely. So when they do exit, because I always have this picture I try to paint for them. So I go, here's how you want the sale to go. Okay, you want $5 million for your business. Someone wants to buy your business. You negotiate it. Maybe you get 5, maybe you get 5.5, right? But you agree on that. They hand you a check. You shake their hand. They're in, you're out. Nobody knows the business sold. That's the kind of business you want, right? Like, you've built it like that. That's valuable to someone. They don't want to come in and reinvent your business, right? So if you're able to build it that way towards that exit, you start to create a business that can experience that kind of transaction at the end. And it's amazing. So, it's just so many good things to put in one place here on this. I love it.
A big thing is that even when we look at this idea of exiting prematurely, 80% of listed businesses in North America don't sell. And when you think of, the housing market and all these houses that get listed around you, if something sits on the market for 6 months, you're basically saying, oh, there's got to be something wrong with that house. And there's got to, that's never, but usually stuff turns within a year, let's say. It's usually a pricing issue, but it'll still turn. Businesses are different. And if businesses don't have full clarity, and if you can't show anybody through due diligence all of the reasons why you've done what you've done, it's a real problem. And so many business owners spend their time and, work. And I mean, I get this because you don't have to pay taxes, but you're trying to hide stuff within your business to lower your profit so that you can not pay as much tax. But if you don't have sort of the history on what you've done around that, people pay a certain portion of your valuation of the business is on your EBITDA. And if you've hidden stuff and you can't show how you can pull that back out in a recasting of earnings, you're not going to get the multiple on that. So let's just say that's $50,000 and multiples are 3 times. That's $150,000 difference because you've tried to hide $50,000 over the last couple of years and you can't really prove it in a way, but you're losing the value of that when you go to sell it. And so there's just different things that we need to consider and look at. And if you still choose to do that, that's fine. That's your choice. But you just need to know those kind of things as we look at a variety of different things that, a lot of business owners just take for granted around making decisions in their business, but they're not looking at it in that long sort of view of things. And they're not keeping the records that they need to keep. And they're not being clear about certain things. And trying to remember stuff from 2 years ago is hard because entrepreneurs are always thinking 2 years, 5 years ahead, not 2 years back.
Right. What do you find? So I always encourage my clients, I'm big on tax strategy.
Yeah.
So I think that they can get tax strategy, which is not, here's my box of stuff at the end of the year. It's really that forward thinking. How do I make the money, keep the money, right, without hiding it, like you're saying? There's good ways and bad ways, right? You can show how it's productive and do that. So I think they need to know that this is it's a strategy, and the sooner you can start looking at that, the better, because our goal is to keep as much as we legally can. Right. And there's really a lot of ways to do that. There are a ton of ways to do that. So, but like you're saying, Pete, a lot of these guys are in it and they got some bad advice. Yeah, don't show you made any earnings for 3 years and all this stuff. Like, well, I want to make money. I want to show like that just took out 3 years of no profit. So my sale begins after 3 years or even the potential, right? So I'm like, I want to make profit, but then what do you do with it? That's the key.
Yeah, it is. And I mean, even when we think of it from a family business, because I do a lot of family business work and next generation work, transferring the family business down and things like that. There's a whole lot of stuff in around that too, because, and we won't take the podcast in that full direction, but just as a little brief overview, there's the transfer of accountability to the kids, but then there's the transfer of shares too. And often they don't align. Often the transfer of accountability happens, and sometimes it's decades later when the transfer of shares happen. But that's bad tax planning too. They're going to get it somewhere down the road. Like, start the planning and start making these things happen. And a lot of times in family business, these conversations don't happen. And the parents are like, well, you can start, we're going away for 3 months. You run the business. And the kids are going, well, when am I ever going to get the shares? And it's not talked about. And all of these different things around transition. So whether you're transitioning to a new owner who's not in the family, or whether you're transitioning to a new owner who is in the family, again, having some of these steps and guidelines and timelines and things that have clear structure and clarity to them are so vital for the business to continue and the legacy to continue.
Yeah, I agree. It's for a family, they don't talk much. So it's like, you got parents running the business and you got kids who, because I always tell people a lot of times, you have we'll call it a mom and pop, but they want to hand it down to their kids, right? That's their intention, the succession, right? Do that. But I'm like, well, if the business isn't squared away, your kids don't want that business. Exactly. It's like if they see you 15 hours a day at the store or whatever it is, right? All the time, every day, always on the phone, no time for them. I assure you they don't want your business. Okay. And if they do, they're going to sell it like a week later. They're going to get whatever they can get and go down the road because you haven't built something that's attractive, which is the same thing for a buyer. So I try to say, think of it if every buyer's your kid, and they've all been, so I try to get that picture as well so people understand why we build a business the way we need to build it, for that valuation. When you really, pick your number, you can do anything. But you just have to know what that number is, then what it actually takes to get there, and you can start the process so you can get there a little more comfortably.
Talking about that family business, just to sort of cap off that, only about 30% of businesses survive the second generation, and only 17% survive the third generation. And there's a variety of reasons around that. But if I'm talking to you, the listener, if you're in a family business and you don't want to be one of those statistics, the other 70% or the other 83%, then this is the kind of stuff you want to go through. Like, this is the stuff you need to really start honing in and understanding and building out, because, as much as you want that business legacy to live and go on, isn't it more important to have the family legacy to live and go on? And, businesses are businesses, family are family, and we can merge the two, but which one is more important? My vote's for the family.
Yeah, I'm with you there for sure, because we know why. It's just so good when you think about that, because a family business, and I'll do my little cap here, is probably one of the most difficult things you can ever engage in, because you've got the family dynamic, the personalities, I've watched so many. I mean, they either tear it apart, or some do well, some.
Yeah.
It's the family that works. It's not the family has to work kind of first to be able to work in a business, right? So there's way more than we could talk about today. But
yeah. I mean, like I said, we did this little 5 minutes on the side that we didn't really talk about, but it's an important piece of family structure, because. Or of exit planning, because a lot of businesses in North America are family businesses, and it is a big chunk of the sort of business owner population out there, where they have relatives working in the business. And family doesn't necessarily mean your kids; it could mean your cousins or the aunts and uncles, or all of that sort of stuff. But it's got to do with the people that are near and dear to you, and you want your business to do really well, but so do you want your family to do.
Yeah, it's I think I know when I started business, I mean, I was single, I was young, I was coming out of the Marine Corps, and I start, digging and shoveling and whatever I'm doing, right? And I make things happen, which is easy, right? Because you owe nothing to anybody. You're just me. All the decisions only affected me for the most part, right? And then as you get older, more mature, you get married, you have kids, the family, that's a whole nother animal. But I think regardless, once the business is rolling, I think, because I always tell people, I haven't found the secret sauce not to work hard the first couple of years.
No,
right? It's just you
agree.
wear a lot of hats, right? You can do all that. The problem is, that those first 2 years all of a sudden becomes 10 years. You repeated the first 2 years 5 times, right? That's where you're stuck. That's the problem. So I think a big thing to realize just from this conversation is you can avoid that. It's really important to know you can avoid that by getting the right people on your team. Bringing in a coach like you, Pete. You bring someone in who's got, I call them outside eyes, who can see things you can't, because you're inside the business. Your blinders are laser focused, right? And they need to be, right, to a certain point. But a guy like you or I can come in and we're at the 10,000 view all the time. We see it. We can see it immediately. Something you've been standing on top of for 3 years. We can walk in and say, can you just step to the left for a second? Oh, there it is. You're looking around for the thing, it's like, look for my glasses, but they're on my head. It's that kind of thing. So there's a huge advantage to those outside eyes. So when people are, whether in business 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, I've helped businesses that are in business for 40 years. I go in and we make great strides. We do new things. So don't ever think you're past your prime from that aspect, because you'll go and help people right near the end for valuations and things like that. So I think there's need at every level, but like anything, the earlier you can begin, the more success you're going to have for the things you truly want.
Yeah.
Right. It's not just about gross revenue. There's so many more things.
I couldn't agree more. One of the key things that we do to kick off most relationships, Richard, is I put them through what we call the Value Builder Assessment, and the Value Builder Assessment has 8 key drivers in their business, and it doesn't matter whether they're close to exit or whether they're at the very beginning. They're still the same 8 key drivers in every business, and you rank yourself on where you're sitting with any of those, and then we kind of go through all those 8 key drivers, and those are the things that we're working on in every meeting thereafter, and it's always trying to raise the bar on each of those 8 key drivers, because when we're raised up in each of those things, the business is humming, it is valuable, it is worthy. And so we take that assessment, again, even if it's a valuation of your business or if it's just the assessment of the different pieces, we got to know what's working and what isn't, and then put a plan together that's going to take us up that extra notch. And that's basically what it is in business, whether you're at it for your first year or whether, like you and I, 30 or 35 years at it, we're still trying to take it up a notch. And that's just the idea of never-ending improvement around what we're doing in our businesses, so that, you know, again, that business is propping up the life that we want to live as business owners.
Yeah, that I couldn't say any better. You know, and I love the 8-point assessment. That is because you can't improve what you don't measure, right? So we've got to have some kind of metric for our business as a whole. And if you can come in and divide it up like that, that's awesome, because you can take those, you can reassess every once a year, twice a year, whatever it is, whatever you need to do. In our program, we do that every quarter. We do a reassessment to see the percentage of increase, right? Okay, you're close to, now you're 50% done with this. Now you're 75% done with it. Same thing you're probably doing. And it's important for people to have those metrics, because a lot of times entrepreneurs are going to run and they just doing it. And I was speaking from my own experience in the beginning.
Me too.
Just do it. Just make more and do more. And I'm not really understanding, like, if I just looked at the numbers, they'll guide you. The data is, I mean, it's known as the new oil now, right? Data is like key, and we can get way more of it now than we ever could. But I think we need to focus on that as well and see it, and have somebody force us to sit down and look at it. Because sometimes I'm like, oh, maybe I don't want to look at it because I think I know what it is, you know, or you could be pleasantly surprised. It could be a lot better than you thought, right?
You know, it's an interesting thing. You were talking about quarterly rhythm, is what I call a quarterly rhythm in the meeting structure that we use. And tomorrow we go into our quarterly rhythm with my team at Shootopia. So we're going to spend a full day, the leadership team, and we're going to go through that stuff. I mean, I can't coach to that if I'm not doing it in my own businesses. And so it's like, hey, tomorrow's our day. We've booked off a time. We're going to an outsource. We go to the same place every time, offsite, and we sit down and we go through the product selection. We go through our process. We go through our people. We go through our KPIs, all those key performance indicators. We go through our promotion of what we're going to do over the next quarter. We look at our alignment as to whether it's going to be aligned with the yearly goals. And we make the decisions that we need to make to carry us through those 8 key drivers so that we're building value in the business. And I think those are the things that people that are, as we kind of said earlier, in the weeds every day, they think they've got all that covered until they start actually looking at it, because what they have covered is the issue of the day, maybe not the issue of the quarter, or maybe it's not thinking long-term into the year or the 5-year plan. And the decisions that they're making that day really aren't helping much. They're just getting them by.
Yeah, that's critical. And I think, like you have, it has to be a non-negotiable, that quarterly review. Like, we do it. It's set. There's a date.
Yeah.
Every quarter we're doing this, because there's that is, everyone can be consistent on that. Everyone can count on that. And they all know that is a big deal. It's a day no one gets to miss.
Yeah.
Right?
We have a meeting structure. Like they know what is going to be talked about, like, and because we do it every quarter. And it's just like, we're going to go through this. We're going to go through this. We have certain dashboards that we're going to look at, and we're going to see what's green lighted, what's yellow lighted, what's red lighted, and what we need to work on and what decisions need to be made, so that we can make those minor decisions on the daily or the weekly basis even easier, because this is the direction. This is the way, as they say in the one Star Wars episode. I can't remember who does that, but it's like, this is the way. And, you know, it is the way. And it is, if you don't have that full clarity, it's very hard to make decisions with the rest of the team. So when the rest of the team understands that is the full clarity, then they can make decisions without you. And that's where life as a business owner starts to get fun.
Yep. I was thinking the same thing. I said, you're training your team. When they can see numbers and they start to understand what they're for, they kind of understand what they're supposed to be doing in the business. Yeah. Okay. When you look at sales numbers, they kind of get it. We have not moved enough shoes. Enough shoes, pardon the pun, aren't walking out of here.
Yeah.
Okay. So, they get to know that. So you're training someone who can make decisions without you. It's really, really a great thing. So a lot of benefits from that. So many good things. Pete, this has been awesome, because I think we've hit a lot. You know, you brought a lot to the table here, man. I love it. So I hope people can really grab a hold of some of this stuff and apply it in their business. How can they follow you, get in touch with you? Whatever you got for us, lay it on us. We'll wrap it up with that.
You know, the best thing to do is just slide over to my website. It's Pete-Mohr, Mohr.com. So Pete-Mohr.com. And then I've got a suite of other websites, an exit planning site, a Colby site, all sorts of stuff underneath there. And that's probably the best place to start. If you're looking to take that value builder assessment, it's on the exit planning, exit ready business site, and you can take that. It's free. And it just kind of gives you that starting point to say, hey, what am I doing well at? And what do I need to work on? And we'll get together for a meeting for half an hour and kind of go through that. And whether you do it on your own or whether you use a coach like me or like you, Richard, to take you further on that journey, that's what we're here for. But it all starts with a benchmark. And I think that value builder assessment is a good place to start.
Yeah, I love it. I'm going to second the motion. Take that assessment. Take Pete's assessment. Do that. It's free. It'll be an eye opener. I guarantee you 100%. You're going to see things, even if you think you're pretty dialed in, you're still going to see new things. And that's what we need to do as business owners. Continue to look for the new things. They're going to take us to those new levels. So, Pete, thanks for taking the time today. Really an honor to have you on here, man. You brought some awesome stuff. And I think there might be a part 2 in this, and we'll hit some other stuff next time.
Love to do it, Richard.
All right, brother. Thank you.